Okay, morning everybody. My name is Gareth Nash. I work for Cobra Mutual Solutions. We're a small workers' co-op which has been trading about 10 years, and we have done a number, or helped people with a number of share issues, particularly in Cumbria actually, with pubs and shops and other institutions. And we were a member of the Community Shares Reference Group, which, as Daniel said, was a project which was operated for about 2 years and which helped, I think, about 10 community shares offers to get off the ground. So I suppose the first question is, what is community investment? So it's basically about local people buying shares in an enterprise that serves a community purpose. And that fundamentally empowers people because it gives people a say in the direction of the enterprise. So people become investors and they become members. Other people would probably say shareholders, but in fact they're members. And investor members are encouraged to play an active part, and they receive a fair financial return, often after a period of time. Sometimes there's a time period over which financial returns are not paid. But of course people are investing not just for a financial return, or sometimes not even for a financial return, but particularly to save a much loved asset or to gain environmental community benefits. So that's the key, actually, to the motivations, I suppose, that actually drives people to invest. So, as Daniel hinted, actually, we're having a bit of a step change, aren't we, in the way that community ventures are financed. Grants are, if not actually disappearing, they're certainly more difficult to get hold of. Loan finance, of course, very useful, but of course it commits the enterprise to fixed interest payments and capital repayments over a period of time. So irrespective of whether you're making profits, you still have to make those payments. Which brings us, of course, to the last one, which is, of course, equity investment, community shares, which, of course, is, in a sense, performance-related capital. It's softer capital. And, of course, it connects the investor to the enterprise, which, of course, loan capital does not necessarily. So it's often described as patient capital. People heard that. Patient capital. So it's capital that is retained within the enterprise. So this idea that we're moving gradually, it is gradual, but it's an interesting move, I think, from fundraising to investment, and that some community services, not all, some community services can be delivered through a business model. Of course, a very particular business model, a democratic business model. And that gradually, we've seen it, we'll see it in the case studies that people will talk about today, that this actually brings a new dimension to communities where it's successful. So not only, sometimes people take over one thing and then they'll say, okay, well, we can do another thing, we can do another thing. I liked it so much I bought the company, sort of logic. So again, it's partly about changing public attitudes, So most people say there's not investors, and as I say, people aren't even saying it. But actually, when you put a proposition, and again, we'll hear people's experience, over there and Felside, proposition to people that actually is cogent and logical, people understand it, and are willing to put their money where their mouth is. And so it's that shift from sort of philanthropic to the community investment proposition. So, I'll be coming back to this quite a lot actually, because I think it's an important diagram. These are the various elements that you've got to get right, actually, if you want to get a community enterprise going and using community investment. So I'll email, I know people are scribbling, that's fine. I'll make sure that these are available through Daniel and whoever, so that people can have them. Okay. But of course, there's your constitution on the left-hand side, the governing document. We'll come to that. But the starting point, I think, is the business model. What is it? What is it that you are going to do that is going to earn you revenue in order that you can take investment, do whatever it is that you want to do with that investment, and then pay a financial return and achieve social and environmental returns. On the right-hand side, community building. Again, the very essence of undertaking a community investment is actually bringing people with you, achieving momentum. And because if you haven't sussed out your so-called market, whatever that is, then you ain't going to achieve the investment. So community building is a vital part of this process. And the last bit, in a sense, is the other document. It's the shareholder document, or the prospectus. So what we're talking about here is using what was an ill-known form, an ill-known legal form called the Industrial Employment Society. But actually, of course, it's coming into its own. And there are some unique features of this form which are highly attractive. They make it highly attractive and flexible for us as people who want to set up community enterprises, use community investment. Highly attractive legal form. So, one, it takes withdrawable share capital. So, most share capital, I don't know if people here have shares in a company or on the stock exchange or whatever it is, but most shares you can transfer, you can sell between people. Of course, the shares that we're talking about here in our cooperative community enterprise are withdrawable, so you can sell them back to the co-op, but you can't sell them to other people. Of course, as Daniel said, it's democratic, so however many shares you have, doesn't matter, you've still got one vote. There's flexible cap on returns, so some people will have no or very low returns at the beginning in order to build up reserves, but then move towards a better return on investment. There's an upper limit on personal shareholding, which is currently £20,000. And critically, linked to number one, is withdrawable shares are exempt from the Financial Services and Markets Act. So that doesn't mean that we don't have to take this very seriously, but it does mean that it doesn't have to be a fully authorised share offer. So it's an ideal structure. People have done it, people are doing it, and people will continue to do it. And you can see here how many people are doing it. If you look at the post-2009 societies, renewable energy, what an expanding field. Whether it's photovoltaics or wind farms, people are creating these things, seeking investment, and potentially, of course it's been a very difficult time, benefiting from the feed-in tariff that they are eligible for. Community shops, another big market. Food and farming, pubs and brewing. Well, Cumbria is there's a few community-owned pubs in Cumbria. So you can see how it's a growing field. I think that Coverage UK will register in 2011 150 industrial and province societies, of which probably 100 might be undertaking community shares. So in comparison with how many companies, of course, are registered, it's minute, because thousands and thousands of companies are registered. But in terms of actually historically where this movement is going, it's exponential.
Gareth, when you say community regeneration, what sort of things have people done in community regeneration?
Sorry.
I shouldn't interrupt you.
Well, yes, I mean taking over buildings. I suppose it's almost a development trust type model, but almost a democratic one, actually. So there's all sorts of different. I mean, some of these might appear in more than one category, of course.
Yes.
Brixton Green has been a big one down in London.
Yeah.
They've taken over a bit of land in central Brixton owned by the council, and they've got a plan to do much development on it. Yeah.
So you can see that, I haven't got the actual figure for 2011, but you can see where IPS's, Industrial and Province Societies, were projected to be by the end of 2011, in comparison with community interest companies, and of course PLCs, which is the other form that has been used, but of course it's a very complex form. So if you look at community shares between 2009 2011, which is roughly the period when the community shares project was going to part of community local government, which Daniel was a part of, Sidewalk was a part of. 115 new societies, 43 share offers, over 5 million raised from 6,000 members. I mean, it's a staggering amount, really, isn't it? And you can see the average and the median raised. Some of them are very small. There was a community shop, Slowett community shop, which was about 20,000, I think. But a pub might be 200,000 or 250,000. And these sorts of figures are achieved. So, just some lessons, I suppose. That shares provide patient capital, and so therefore they're different from loans, because loans are not patient. As soon as you have it, you are liable for the capital and the interest. Cooperative and community benefit societies are a marvellous, flexible form to undertake this work because of the exemptions which they benefit from, and investor democracy. So it locks people into the success, and what I mean by success, I mean success in financial, social, and environmental terms. Withdrawable share capital is an interesting one. So it can provide liquidity, of course, but there have to be rules about withdrawal, because otherwise liquidity may well be threatened. Which is why it's vital that it's a business model, so that reserves are accumulated, so there is that churn. And actually, our experience, some work done with a number of community share issues, is that the churn is not huge. Actually, so if we look back to the old ones like the Crown and Heskett Newmarket, people moving out of the community, people moving into the community, okay, yes, there's churn, but the churn is not great. But you still need that. You still need to be profitable, basically. So that's why it's a business model. Business benefits from engaging members in multiple roles. This is fascinating, isn't it? That people can be, employees, suppliers, investors, volunteers, and they're committed to the success of this community enterprise. I'm sure we'll hear that, more of that today. I think pre-starts often leave lots of development support and financial incentives. That may be a bit of pump priming money, grant money. And I think lastly, interestingly, that Cognitive Community Finance has come up with a scheme where they will underwrite part of the share issue. So they're very keen for more share issues to be undertaken. And so therefore there is a potential scheme where they will underwrite it. And the key fund is very, very community share friendly. So again, that's the website which we've got the reference group and Daniel talked about. Loads of wonderful stuff actually on that website, including the practitioner's guide, fact sheets and other stuff. And indeed, there is a picture of the practitioner's guide. So I think that's just about all I need to say really.
Great.
So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Happy to answer questions or...
Yeah, there are any questions? Gareth?
I was wondering if you could just say something about the differences between the Community Benefit Society as opposed to the co-op.
Yes. Yes. Cooperative. I think what's worth saying is actually that the distinction is probably less clear now. It's interesting that when we helped the SME market in the Old Crown, they saw mutual benefits. So they saw the cooperative model as their model. And yet, when Husway over in North Yorkshire decided that they wanted to buy the club, they used the Community Benefit Society because I think they thought there was wider community benefit. So the cooperative model is purely neutral, so it's purely in theory, in practice, it's purely for the benefit of its members. Whereas Community Benefit Society, you've got the option of an asset lock, of course. So on dissolution, any residual assets will go to a similar asset lock model. So that is attractive. That's attractive sometimes for certain funders and others. And it has to be for wider community benefit. So you have to argue, when you register a community benefit society, you have to argue, you have to say why am I not going to be a co-op? Why am I not going to be a co-op? Why am I going to be a BenCom? Because I'm going to deliver wider community benefit. Does that make sense?
So you mentioned the asset lock, but there are other reasons why people would prefer to be a Community Benefit Society, isn't it?
I think that's the key reason. That's often the key reason is the asset lock, because you can't have a statutory asset lock in a co-op.
Okay.
I think the asset lock can be quite important with something like affordable housing.
Yes.
If you were looking at trying to draw out funding from government sources to get local authority support.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas the straightforward co-op is more of a partnership, really, isn't it, between a group of people?
Yes. You're right actually that some people, certain public funders, are not particularly in favour of the co-op model. They prefer the Community Benefit Society model. So, it does. You can see the ratio that there's slightly more Community Benefit Societies, I think, weren't there?
Just to give an example of asset lock and its practical benefit to an IPS I'm in, and that is where Lockins Organic Resources recently got a really good grant for an anaerobic digester on the farm where it's based. But that was a fund only for community organisations and we were an IPS already, and they insisted that we asset locked the plant. It was a condition of the grant. So, indeed.
Yeah.
it hadn't been an IPS, it wouldn't be easy.
In the situation of a straightforward co-op, it can be dissolved and the assets can be divided up amongst the
members. Yes.
So if you try to draw in community support, you tend to get a more reassuring message out to the community if there's an asset.
It's a geographical thing. You get people, you get walkers, wanting to be a member of this thing.
I suppose the other one is the diaspora effect. So you've got people who went to Canada generations ago, and they like to invest in their ancestral homeland. That kind of shares with it.
Yeah. No. So you would be doing the share offer in this country, but you would want to market it.
Well, we have an international network for what we're trying to do. So marketing internationally the way you can these days.
That'd be interesting and challenging, I'm sure. Yeah.
So my next question was then, given this, because it's a great model, I think it's a model for the future, have you got any examples of institutional investors, I'm talking about local authorities, health authorities too, who've got actually the job to do the stuff that we're doing better? Any examples of that?
Yes, there are examples of institutional investors, because of course the limit, the £20,000 limit doesn't apply to organisations. It doesn't apply to. Yeah. So you can find you do find that other industrial and public societies sometimes will be willing to invest in another in an embryonic industrial policy.
Still get only one vote?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so you're saying that the only example of an institutional investor for an IPS is another IPS?
No, it's not the only. But housing associations are interesting vehicles, aren't they? Because they're usually they're industrial and public societies. And the institutional investors that I mentioned here, the key fund, will invest in shares sometimes, or shares and a loan, or even, I think, shares, loan and a grant, small grant. So there's a bit of a package. So I think that, So I think it's to be explored, isn't it? I think, and actually, of course, there are these other organisations like, the social investment business, and there are other people who might want to.
Venture philanthropists, I think.
Venture philanthropists, I suppose, there is, not to my knowledge, I don't think there are any examples of large investments, but I think it's to be tested, isn't it?
To your point about local authorities is important. I mean, Carlisle City Council sit in a small room in Formula. They're very interested in investing in community renewable energy. In just the sort of way we're talking about. Are there any examples where local authorities have invested in IPS?
One of the things we're looking at with Eden District Council at the moment is getting them to make an investment into Cybermore networks, so we can connect some industrial units that they have. Half of them are currently vacant, so that those units will have super fast broadband, which will increase their attractiveness to potential tenants. And the Eden District Council are pretty strapped for cash, as most councils are at the moment. But being able to sell it to them in that way means that they can see a potential. It's a like a win-win for them. Yeah, they put some investments in, but it actually gets their units rented out that aren't generating any revenue at the moment. And similarly with Eden Housing Association, we've gone to them and said, we can provide fibre to all your properties, which will make them easier to rent out in the future, and give your tenants the ability to interact with you online, which is cheaper than having to do more conventional sort of face-to-face interactions, and particularly when it's so difficult to get from Oxford to Penrith if you're on public transport as well. It's another bonus. So I think it's a case of being able to frame what you're offering the public sector in terms that are going to be attractive to them. That's the first part, and then be able to follow that up with good business plans. I mean, I'm not holding my breath on Eden District Council coming up with some money, but then there are potentially pots of discretionary money that they can bid for that we can't bid for, which would open the door on some of that investment. And what we tend to hear from them, probably the same in Carlisle, that so much of the regeneration money in Cumbria gets spent in the west of the county. They don't have the projects coming through which can be supported. If you can work in partnership with them and give them those projects, then it makes their job a bit easier. I think on the international investor point of view as well, we've been in touch with other cooperatives that do the same sort of thing that we're doing in the Netherlands, and they've come back and put small investments into us already, so that diaspora, wider community of interest is really interested to tap into as well.
I was going on too long, but I mean, so there isn't an example. This would be a first for the City Council in all these other examples that we've seen nationally. We don't know of any other local authority involvement. And the other thing is to say that this thing from the City Council, which was muttered to, I think is coming from the fact that they're disposing the assets left, right and centre in order to meet their deficit. And there's a sort of political uncomfortableness about doing that without being seen to invest some of those returns. So I think that's another angle that, politically, they may need to be seen to be investing in communities while at the same time disposing of all the assets that they should be transferring.
Yeah.